This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end.
That's so beautiful.
So this is a vlog of some sort for the finale of Gravity Falls.
Oh, it's fine. It's over at last. Weirdmageddon has ended, and so is Gravity Falls. This is such a good show.
It is a show unlike any that has come before or shall come again. I don't care if that was proper English.
Too upset to English right now. I am glad it didn't, outlive itself. It had a set run and a specific story, and it's played that out wonderfully.
It certainly did.
But also in a way that will give me nightmares for a very long time.
Yay, my favorite.
Just because should I just go into the recap? Weirdmageddon began with Bill Cipher finally getting access to this reality and setting off Weirdmageddon, where everything is... See, that sounds funny and cute, and then just one of the first things he does is, when Pacifica Northwest Father it tells him off, he's like, I'm gonna shuffle the functions of all the holes in your face. And his mouth becomes an eyeball and his eyes become ears, and it's just, that was deeply disturbing. And it's a children's show.
I wanted right after that to put the little Disney logo. Do-do-do-do-do.
Fun for all the family.
When you wish upon a... Oh God!
Oh God, no, no wishes, nothing, don't wish for anything. That's been going on. Gravity Falls been getting weirder than usual. Lots of people have been getting turned into stone and turned into Bill's almighty throne. Mabel got a bubble, in which we got Mabel Land, to keep her quiet and happy, but we got some absolutely tear-jerking power of siblingship. Also, this is a big thing for me, a thing I'm very weak for in fiction. Strong, positive sibling relationships. I'm so weak for that. I properly sobbed when Dipper convinced Mabel to come help him save the world, rather than staying in a reality where they're 12 and, going on adventures together forever.
It's a metaphor for the show, I think.
So it's telling the fandom, get over it! Summer ends! So... they break out, they have... I love how the whole sequence with Dipper and Mabel, prior to that in the car, was clearly dipping from the Mad Max bucket. And I loved it so much.
That was pretty great.
That was just a fantastic setup, and,
Though the best part was the reality warping bubbles.
Yep. The weird things going on in them.
I wonder if people even got the weird CG stuff, which was something straight out of the Money for Nothing video from 1985.
CG was interesting. The visuals were hellish. It's at the beginning of this final episode, Grunkle Stan describes it as, well, I looked outside and saw nightmares pouring from the sky. I listened to a lot of AM radio, so I knew what that meant.
That's great.
And a lot of plot threads came together. You'd finally figure out what everything that Grunkle Ford and Dipper was doing, defended the Mystery Shack from the weirdness. I quite enjoyed the visual effects for the shield on that. So
yes, I did.
So Grunkle Stan and a lot of other survivors are holed up in there.
Yeah, I love all the just weird callback characters. Like the multi-bear.
Yes, you've got the multi-bear, you've got the disembodied Wax head still in the...
Yes, Wax Larry Kane. Still voiced by Larry Kane. I love that.
That's amazing.
I love how they brought Larry Kane back.
They got Larry Kane back, they got the gnomes back, they got,
several times.
Yep. Gnomes just kept on her. And it's all set up in there where Grunkle Stan just wants to hide out and just, ride out the end of time. And where Dipple and Mabel? Let me start that again. Dipper and Mabel are like, well, we got, as soon as he's got everyone convinced that's a good idea, he accidentally turns on the TV and everyone sees everybody they love turned to stone and trapped in a throne made of human agony. Which, over in the human agony corner, Bill is pissed off because there's some kind of weirdness bubble around Gravity Falls that's keeping him from leaving and taking Weirdmageddon across the universe. And he needs Stanford's knowledge to tell him how to break the bubble. And Stanford is like, no. I don't know why he admitted to actually knowing it anyway. This guy's way too talkative around Bill, and that has caused all of the problems.
Indeed. I think he actually made a great point that when he said that Stanley never would have fallen for his tricks in the first place.
Yeah, because Stanley is a con man, and he's a genius at it, and he's definitely not the same kind of brand of genius as his brother, but he would not fall for a Dorito in a top hat telling him to sell out the universe. I do love the fact that the entire design behind Bill was that creepy eye pyramid thing that's on the back of American dollar bills.
Yes.
Because that creepy eye thing disturbs me. Why is that there? What does that mean?
No one knows.
Well, now we know that it's an evil transdimensional being that likes to burn down dimensions, apparently.
And wears a top hat.
And wears a top hat.
As you do. Of
course you do. And yeah, so while Bill's trying to convince Stanford to tell him how to, break the bubble, I can't remember at what stage they decide turning the Mystery Shack into a mecha is an idea. I can't quite remember how that came about, but it was amazing.
I want to say, I think it was McGucket. Yes, it was McGucket. He has the one invention he made that will actually help people.
It's the Shack mecha.
Yes.
Oh, I love when they're looking over the designs and Seuss is like, do you have a gun sword? Because I watch a lot of anime,
yes.
And you gotta have a gun sword. And McGuckin's like, what's an anime? We have much to discuss, my friend.
that was something straight out of Undertale, basically. Yeah. Where can I find the anime?
Where can I find an anime? And, in the automatic montage immediately after that, them all building the mecha, there's just a shot of Seuss showing anime to McGucket. McGucket's just taking notes and has a very serious...
I would love how so many people refer to anime as with, guns with swords. Guns and swords. Just guns and swords.
Well, to be fair, that is, the entire summary of RWBY right there, and that is trying so hard to be anime.
I think the funny thing for me is I've never seen an anime that actually has a gun that turns into a sword.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, Trigun has the crucifix full of guns. No, I can't think of any sword gun or gun swords, actually.
I think, everyone confused anime with Final Fantasy VIII or something.
Probably.
I mean, he basically said a copyright 3 version of the gunblade. He just said gun sword instead.
Yeah, no copyright productions were harmed in the making of this cartoon. So they built the mecha, which includes putting a living T-Rex mostly trapped in amber on one of its hands.
That was the best ever. That had to have been a Power Rangers reference. Because didn't one of the earliest mechs in Power Rangers have one of the hands be the dinosaur mech thing that comes together? And so one of the hands is actually a dinosaur head?
I was wondering what they were going to do with the amber. We got this one shot of a lot of them chipping away at amber, and then it zooms out and there's a dinosaur sleeping in it. I'm like, okay, are they taking the amber for something? The dinosaur's just kind of there because it's Gravity Falls. But it's no, they're taking the dinosaur. They're just keeping it trapped in amber to make it safe. Kind of.
Dinosaur arm!
I also love, if I could be bothered, I'd pause on that scene at the end of the montage where Mabel has given everyone a sweater from her infinite supply of sweaters, because I am absolutely certain that if you pause that scene and checked all the sweaters, she's worn everyone throughout the course of the series. It's ones you've already seen. I am absolutely certain you can confirm that. I just haven't, because I can't be bothered, because I'm lazy. But I could not be more certain that every one of those sweaters has already appeared in the series and had plot significance.
Probably.
And it's just, I love how they actually, weaponize her infinite supply of sweaters when they jump out of the mecha later to get into Bill's pyramid castle thing. They all have parachutes that are clearly made out of sweaters. It's just the power of sweaters to the rescue. Which actually gets very literal later, but I'll get to that because we've already skipped ahead to the fact that they turn the Mystery Shack into a mecha, and then they go to attack Bill with the mecha Mystery Shack, including fighting several of his, nightmare creatures in one of the most anime fights I've seen in a Western cartoon, outside of, maybe Legend of Korra. But that, the mecha giant, it was your classic mecha giant versus giant monsters fight.
It certainly was.
And again, they'd clearly taken some cues from Pacific Rim in the way that...
that was my main thought the whole time, is that this had to have been Pacific Rim inspired.
Well, it's like, Mabel's two friends are controlling the arms of the mecha, and each of them is controlling a different arm, and they're just... The way they were shooting that and showing that was very Pacific Rim.
Yes.
They definitely took some inspiration there. And they did not, in fact, have a gun sword, but they did have a lot of guns. And they did have some kind of dragon tail thing. And they also had Wendy jumping on a flying eyeball and using it to turn some of the monsters into stone before tearing its wings off. Because she's Wendy, and she's better than everyone.
I feel like the entire second season has existed partially to try to slowly turn Wendy into the most uber badass character possible.
Yep.
It's great.
And I forgot to mention, among the people fighting against Weird Mageddon and Bill is the guy from the Street Fighter parody episode.
Yes, Fighter McSkirmish.
Yes, the one who came to real life. So, he's out there fighting as well.
I love that little scene that reintroduced him. Like, he is seen as failures.
Here, I am now humble warrior, or whatever it was.
That was
minus 50 despair.
Yes.
So we get the incredibly anime mecha fight. We jump into the pyramid, where the kids and they all find the throat of human misery. They find little Gideon dancing in a hamster cage, and Stanford's been turned to gold. So Gideon's pointing out, he's at the giant throne made out of frozen humans. Like, pull out the mayor. He's a load-bearing human, and that turns them all back from stone somehow.
Well, that was easy. Good job, Bill.
Well done. Yeah, the guy's not building very structurally sound buildings if they turn back from stone to, living people at any moment. This is where I go back into the huge plot relevance of sweaters. It's Stanford makes that, magic circle that he found in a native prophecy, apparently, is the specific phrasing used there. I'm going to move on from that. And it has all these symbols in them, and 6 of the symbols are on the sweaters people are wearing, or their hats. There's on Dipper's hat and Mabel's sweater and the hoodie that Wendy's pal has been wearing since forever.
I like how they guess the other ones.
Yeah.
They're just so...
It doesn't have to be too specific. You've got...
close enough.
Sousa, so it just has to be someone that's cool under pressure. Everyone immediately looks at Wendy because she's the coolest person they know, and Season 2 has set that up. They're joining hands in the circle, and Grunkle Stan's like, we don't know how it's gonna work, it's just some hoodoo circle, and it's like, they're glowing blue as they're standing there holding his hand, Stan. They're standing there and glowing blue. I'm pretty sure something's happening.
And of course, the sibling bickering ruins everything.
Yep, Stanley and Stanford start fighting again, and that ruins the circle. And Bill, who's been outside fighting the the mecha robot and has just smashed it with its own leg because the leg was outside of the magic barrier, comes back in and he turns most of them into banners on the wall, which is kind of creepy.
It reminded me of Zelda Link Between Worlds. The weird art style when you turn into, the painting thing on the walls.
Yeah, so he turns most of them into banners, and, decides he's already decided he's gonna torture the kids till, Stanford tells him the secret. I think they end up in a cage at some point, and then Dipper has the, bigger, smaller raid to get them.
I love that. That was just a random callback, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's great. It makes the cage bigger so him and Mabel can escape it and, run off. And he cages Stanley and Stanford and goes off after the kids. The kids are still working in perfect unison and they're completely confident that they've kicked Bill's ass before and they can do it again, while Stanley and Stanford are still fighting. And then Bill turns into one of the most nightmarish things in the entire episode to chase after the kids.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, what was that? Oh.
It was like the final boss in, like, a JRPG. The first form is just kind of normal enemy, what you've seen for the whole game. And then the true form comes out and it just becomes this horrific monster.
Yeah, it's absolute abomination that will stalk my nightmares. God, this is one of the points I'm like, this is still a show for children, right? Oh, that was terrible.
Well, to be fair, it is 80s inspired, and if you've ever seen certain 80s movies supposedly made for kids, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's happening. The kids are trying to escape, Abomination Bill, and they find out the rest of the surviving townspeople have been captured. And meanwhile, Stanley and Stanford are sitting there in their cage and feeling sad about the fact that they can't work together and the kids can, even though they're twins too. And they're talking about how the fact that, Bill wants Stanford to make a deal with him and let Bill into his mind find the equation. He's like, if only I didn't have this metal plate in my head, we could use the memory ray. And Stanley's like, well, it's too bad we can't let him into my head. I mean, it's not much good for anything. And I'm just like, this is the point where I start going, you're twins! Swap clothes and fool Bill! Swap clothes! Swap clothes! And I got so mad for the rest of the scene because I thought they hadn't done that. But, when Bill does, in fact, corner and capture the kids, and he says, oh, I got so scared when he said he's going to kill one just for the hell of it, and you could tell his eeny, meeny, miny, mo was going to land on Mabel. He's just like, no, not Mabel.
Not the Mabel.
Not Mabel. But, and one of them is like, no, don't do it, I'll make the deal with you, Bill, shake hands. And then as soon as Bill's shaken hands with apparently Stanford and gone into his mind, nope, they did swap clothes. And Grunkle Stan...
And apparently voices!
And Grunkle Stan's like, I do a great impression of my brother, don't I? Which is actually brilliant, because that's what he's been doing for 30 years, is pretending to be his brother. So I love that's how they defeat Bill.
Yes. I love how Grunkle Stan basically pulls out, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me, sort of thing. But with his mind.
It just voluntarily goes down. And it's also kind of sad, because he's never valued his own mind for anything, not once in his life. So he's just so ready to sacrifice it to destroy Bill and save his family. I'm kind of like, oh, I have feelings. I have a lot of feelings. Damn it, Gravity Falls. I'm just...
The almost convinced me it was gonna stick. They almost did it.
They almost did, because, they use the memory gun on Grunkle Stan, and they erase his mind and Bill with it. Just that last moment of Stanley going, I guess I was good for something after all, while remembering him and Dipper and Mabel. I'm just like, I'm gonna cry. This is the point where my notes start going from variations on this shit is so fucked up to I'm going to fucking cry, oh my god. But yeah, the world goes back to what passes for normal in Gravity Falls on a day-to-day basis. And the Stanford, Dipper, and Mabel are left with, Stanley waking up and not knowing who any of them are, or who he is, or anything at all. Because, of course, they had to wipe his memory. And, part of me is, like, having so many feelings, and part of me is like, guys, you literally just hit him with the memory ray for, 5 minutes straight. Why are you surprised that he lost his memory? That was, the entire purpose of the exercise. But no, they get it back with, making him mad at Waddles and showing him a book full of Mabel's scrapbook, which is, I don't even care that it's cheesy as fuck, it's adorable. And this is the point where I started crying happy. So.
Aww.
Yeah. I, don't even care if it's cheesy and saccharine as fuck. It's Gravity Falls, and it is still a kid's show, technically. Well, it reminds me of that Terry Pratchett quote about writing, you can write dark, terrifying things in children's books and children's stories, and maybe you should, but he says, you can take them into the darkness, but you must then lead them back out into the light. that's how you get away with doing fucked up shit. Needs to have a happy ending. And it does. It's, they have their 13th birthday party, and they get to talk about how much everybody loves each other, and Uncle Stan finally gives the mystery shack to Seuss. Well, he's gonna go travel in the world with his brother at last, and they're Stan-a-war. Shit.
Yes.
And, the kids finally do have to leave Gravity Falls.
Though they still have Waddles!
They still have Waddles. Because both Grunkles get really threatening to the bus driver when he won't let Waddles on the bus. And
Yes.
they've also got that letter that, Wendy had everyone sign for Dipper and Mabel. It says, see you next summer. So it's not like they're never going to see these people again. But this summer is over. And they've got a really fun story when they get back to school, and everyone wants to know what they did for the summer.
Yep. So how long until the teachers try to send them to the loony bin?
I'm sure they'll be a little bit more discreet than that with what they did over the summer.
I can imagine just like, Dipper's like, okay, we don't need to say anything, and then Mabel's just like talking around about this. Hey, do you want to hear the story about these gnomes that almost kidnapped me and tried to marry me?
See, I am entirely convinced that Mabel has made up stories like this before, so they'll probably just think that that's what happened.
So yeah, okay, Mabel, sure. Aren't you getting a little too old for these stories?
And that was Gravity Falls. It was a great story about weirdness and adventure and specifically family. Like the big for serious theme was family. That all this weirdness, all this crazy shit they can handle because Dipper and Mabel have each other and always will. And at the end, Stanley and Stanford have found each other again and they're brothers and friends again. And, that's how they're able to stop all the things that Stanley and Stanford couldn't handle because they weren't united. Dipper and Mabel can because they are. And it's lovely, and it made me very, very emotional, and it's a good show. So that's me done the plot synopsis. I'm going to sit back and let you ramble because I know you can talk about how amazing the show is forever.
I certainly can. First of all, maybe my favorite scene in the entire episode was when Bill Cipher singing and playing piano. That was magical. That is a scene beyond words.
That was special.
That makes me so happy. Probably the most unintentionally funny thing in this episode was when Bill notices the giant robot and then he just comes out but it just has a giant fish and it seems like he just crushed it for a second. For a split second I thought he just destroyed it. Whoops, I guess that didn't work. And I laughed.
It's well, nope. I have to say that was a really cool shot, the one where he's getting larger as he's flying out through the window of his place. That was quite a cool bit of artwork and quite menacing.
Yes, it was. Some quotes here. Oh yes, this is probably, I think this has become one of my favorite, smaller time characters. Just this line, this experience will forever scar Tad Strange.
Yeah, one of the teenagers like, I think I'm tortured, but I think I'm tortured and scarred for real now.
I don't know why, but I just love Tad Strange.
It's the weird way he talks and the way he's
Yes.
narrating everything that happens to him, and just the cheerful Stepford way that he talks.
He's just so normal that he's strange, and it's great. I actually did see this story where apparently there was this huge theory that because Tad Strange was mentioned in a couple places before he appeared, and people assumed he was this major character. Almost like a Bill Cipher worthy character. And there were so many theories. And fans couldn't believe that Tad Strange was just this random one-off guy.
No, he's just this random minor background dude. They've made great use out of their random minor background folk, especially ones that turned out to be plot relevant like McGucket.
Or Gravity Falls' new mayor.
Yep. Or the gay cops.
Yes.
Canonically gay cops. I love that.
Yay.
Because I love how they've spent the whole show with those two just being a parody of, like, every buddy cop every unintentionally homoerotic buddy cop movie ever. And they just took it one step further towards it than Hot Fuzz did.
Yes. I do love a lot of their lines throughout the series. Wait, what was that? What was that, a dream? Every day with you is a dream. Like, just random lines they got throughout the series are just great.
Yeah, they were a fun wee double act. Oh, and I really should have taken more notes while watching it, but I was spending most of it watching and going, ah! I do have one note that just says, where the fuck did Wendy get that axe? I can't even remember when that happened, just Wendy must have magically produced an axe at some point.
Northwest has the great line telling her daughter, I believe who said it, touch the hillbilly.
Do what no one in our family has ever done. Touch the hillbilly. When she's got to hold hands for the magic circle.
There is no better way to incorporate those characters into the finale, I think. That is exactly what they should have said at that moment. Although they have an even better line towards the end, where they're like, supposedly broke. You're only gonna have one pony now. Dun 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 dun!
And the fact that McGucket makes a fortune off his patents and then immediately,
yes,
like, I need a new shed. That one's for sale.
I love when he enters the place, he just takes his 3 things he has, puts them on the ground. Well, I'm done moving in. There's so much good stuff.
There's just a lot of good characters have kind of already reached the peak of their plots before this point, but it all ties together and used them very well in the final episode. We gotta look at little Gideon deciding I'm not gonna be evil anymore. I'm gonna be a normal little boy, but he still has thugs to beat up people who mock his skateboarding.
Yes, that is awesome. I do love his weird friendship with the prisoners. That is great.
Yeah, that was cute. In a very, very strange way.
I love how they immediately transitioned to a scene of him just like on a skateboard trying to be cool.
He's doing his best.
He's basically trying to be Dippy Fresh.
Actually, they're on his skating board. Oh yeah, the return of several times. We have several injuries. Ow, 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 ow. My liver, girl.
2013. It's not 2013 anymore.
It is not.
I never got that joke. Why did he keep saying 2013?
I think that was meant to be a joke about when they were spawned or something, but I honestly don't know. I have never followed boy bands closely enough to know all of the tropes they're satirizing there. I have a vague memory of 90s boy bands, and they tended to wear a lot more black leather rather than white spangles.
Actually, one thing I just remembered. We didn't see the 2, pretty 80s hunk boys from Mableland.
Yeah, did they just vanish when Mableland did? Or did they get eaten by weird
No, they were still around afterwards, so where are they?
I guess they must have just wandered off somewhere and vanished when Weird Mageddon did, like the video game character did.
That was, like, think about it, that is actually really weird, considering how they made an entire point to have them still exist afterwards. Very odd.
I think they were just juggling so many other characters, and there wasn't really anything else interesting for those guys to do, ever.
Yeah. Are we brothers? I don't even know!
Yeah, I've always had a lot of fun with their satire in this show. And just the perfect distillation of, every teeny bop idol or video game fighting character or whatever it is that you've ever seen. Perfectly distilled into one person.
I think my biggest disappointment is especially because Alex Hurst did a lot to imply they were going to do something with it. We still don't know Dipper's real name.
Yeah, he's never really revealed that.
I would have bet money that was going to happen in this episode.
No, it never seems to have come up. They're still just Dipper and Mabel. Which I think he did say something about maybe doing some comics in the future, so maybe it'll come up then. And it didn't end up being valuable. I thought if anything it might have been valuable to the Magic Circle, because those things can have a kind of true names vibe to them. But nah, it was just a pine on his hat.
I honestly think his name is Marty. Mabel and Marty, it would fit.
It would. Well, they did say in the, but in that bonus interview episode with Alex Hirsch, he did say that, Dipper's real name and Mabel's are similar.
They both begin with M.A.
Yeah, maybe.
Also, total Back to the Future reference, so that adds to my theory. Since the series is half the time a giant love letter to the 80s.
Pretty much. Yeah, that would actually make way too much sense. I do think it's, an interesting little bit of tie-up was that, he gets that iconic hat in the first episode of the series. He gets at the Mystery Shack, when Uncle Stan offers them free stuff. And then just for the last episode, he swaps hats with Wendy. So, he's leaving the hat in Gravity Falls where he got it. But I think Mabel still has the grappling hook.
Yeah. For some reason, I really love that. When characters, will do, someone will take, someone's, piece of clothing or someone just to remember them by. I don't know why, but whenever a character does that, they automatically look cooler.
It's always cute. It's always great when someone's got, some kind of memento like that.
And I do love, how they did the credits at the end with all the extra pictures and stuff.
I loved that. I enjoyed that.
Just all these weird extra scenes.
Just random cute little extra. I particularly loved Mabel and her buddies in the photo booth, that section.
Also, Grenda with her, boyfriend.
Yeah.
From Austria.
I loved that whole plot line. That was friggin' adorable. Oh, yeah. Grenda had one of the best lines in the episode towards the end, which, summed up my feelings towards the entire series. I hate my dumb heart for making me feel things! Yeah, that's the, he knows how the whole audience feels right now. Punch it hard! Punch it!
And then Candy agrees.
Yeah. Everyone wants Grenda to punch their heart for them, cause no, gotta stop feeling. Need to stop feeling.
But that was, that was the final episode.
I think one of the things that especially impressed me about Gravity Falls is that, Alex went out of his way to really embrace the modern fandom culture, which, between being able to repeatedly watch videos online and all the GIF makers and so on, it's very common now for people to comb through what they're watching frame by frame for background things and little hints and clues. So, he absolutely embraced that and stuck the tiniest little codes and clues and hints, and he put so much work into ensuring the continuity of the show, and, things like the giant chess pawn staying in the twins' room, and just, he put so much work into making it rewarding to engage, and, it really pays off to engage in that kind of close examination of the text, which I think is great. As someone who really enjoys picking over and rewatching and repeatedly rewatching and overanalyzing everything I watch and read, I really love that he's absolutely, cause it's, the internal episode by episode plots, Weirdmageddon aside, they're generally easily straightforward enough for kids to watch the show. But if you're older and you're watching with the show with a much higher level of engagement, there's a lot for you to get out of it, and that's great.
Including half the jokes that kids won't even get.
Well, and you can tell it's a decent kid show if they've gotten in a lot of jokes that kids won't get. I think Toy Story is still the masterwork for that, on that front, but I remember rewatching Toy Story as an adult and noticing so many jokes I did not remember being in there. Especially nearly every joke to do with Woody and Bo Peep. Wow. I'm sad to see Gravity Falls go, but I am always glad when a show, because Western cartoons in particular have a tendency to, either run for a few episodes or run for 1,000,000 years. Long after they've stopped being good. And,
yes.
And one of the best Western the best Western cartoon ever made is Avatar: The Last Airbender. We're not going to tiptoe around this. And that one had a set length, a pre-planned length and story that it followed through with incredible pacing. It didn't try to outlive itself. I mean, some people would say that it would with making Legend of Korra, but I really loved Legend of Korra, so.
And it's a different series, doesn't count.
Yeah. Gravity Falls has had its planned run, and it's run through its story, and it was fantastic every minute of it.
Yes, it was.
I feel like I really need to rewatch it now, knowing everything. Like, I have so many new shows I need to watch, but I also really need to rewatch Gravity Falls, just knowing a lot of the background things now. Especially, seriously, anyone listening, if you haven't watched the bonus interview episode that was released with Time Baby interviewing Alex Hirsch, please watch that. It's really funny, and it does reveal a lot of interesting things. And it also shows just how much the writing team loved creating this world and these stories, how much extra work they put into it for just little things. I mean, an important rule when this is something I learned in a script writing class, but it applies to creating any sort of story. You need to know everything about the story, and then you'll only end up putting it, and then put in almost none of it. Because, you need to know all your characters' favorite foods, but don't try and force in a mention of what their favorite foods are. It may come up naturally throughout the text, at which point you'll be glad you already know it and have already mentioned them eating that specific type of pizza every time pizzas come up. Even though you never highlighted that it was their favorite food, people reading it will like, haha, continuity.
And then, ironically, because you did all that thinking about writing, you forgot to eat.
Oh yeah. Every time.
Every day.
But, they've planned out this hugely intricate world, and we've maybe only gotten a peek of a fraction at it, but because they've planned everything out, what we've seen has been coherent and well developed, and anytime something needed to be developed, it can be quite easily.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, I love seeing things like that. For example, I remember, super early on in Adventure Time, they brought up, 12 different, ideas and characters, all of which ended up being used, way, way later.
I haven't watched Adventure Time before. I think I've only seen 2 seasons. I really need to get more of that in me.
The Lich King was first shown in, first properly, had his first proper episode, the end of season 2, and the creators first mentioned him, online, 4 episodes in.
Yeah.
This is a character we want to do something with. And then, 2 years later, here we are. I kinda love stuff like that.
Yeah, again, Adventure Time is also a world that was clearly planned out and designed with a huge amount of love. And, just so much investment from the writers in what they're creating. There's a lot of really good stuff coming out of Western animation just now in general, We don't have Gravity Falls has ended now, but we still have Adventure Time and, Steven Universe ongoing, for lack of a better term.
There's still good stuff. And there's still... even, stuff I'll probably never watch, because I don't have the time to watch everything. We Bare Bears is a good show, and I'm like...
Yes, I keep hearing...
Sucks, I'll never watch it!
I keep hearing about that and Over the Garden Wall, and I'm like, oh god, I have so many...
Well, you should watch Over the Garden Wall, because it's not that long. It's basically as long as, a movie.
Well, that's fair enough. I can... This is a thing, I keep building up lists of things to watch, and the longer it is, the further down the list it creeps, because I'm like, well, if I watch that, I can watch this quickly because it's short and catch up on it, and then I can start off on something longer,
Yeah, that's literally the only way I justified to myself even watching Star vs. the Forces of Evil. Just because it was only 13 episodes. So it's hey, I caught up with that, okay.
We've gotten wildly off the topic of Gravity Falls.
Yes. But yeah, for me, I'm not going to say this is my favorite show, but I can say I cannot think of a single show that, without a doubt, I like more. There are some shows I like as much as Gravity Falls, maybe. But more, no.
I mean, just all the way through, it's been well designed, it's been entertaining, it's been emotional, it's been visually gorgeous.
And I loved Avatar. But Gravity Falls episodes I could just rewatch over and over and over and over. They're just so fun. You could just watch any episode anytime and it's just great. Whereas with Avatar, I wouldn't want to watch it unless I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, I've rewatched through Avatar way too many times, and I will watch it too many times more. But not right now.
But that is that. But before we go, want to spend some time on... Well, how about we just quickly go through few best ofs, just few beloved favorite things from us. First thing on this thing I wrote down for these notes. Okay, this is the simplest answer for this is super simple. Favorite character?
Oh.
Duh. It's Mabel.
Yeah, the first character that springs to mind for me is Mabel.
It's Mabel.
The girl is made of sunshine and light.
Sunshine, light, and maybe too much sugar.
Too much sugar and an infinite supply of sweaters and glitter.
Yes.
I don't know, this is I was about to say, this may be just something that happens as you get older. I'm 23. Just that it is these of recent, I find I have so much love for characters that are just unabashedly happy.
So do I. Yeah, I think most of my favorite characters in recent years have just been like these crazy, energetic, comedic yet infinitely happy sort of characters like this.
I think it's because there's a lot of fiction, especially just now, that treats being happy like it's something you only do if you're stupid or foolish or don't really appreciate or understand the world. And we do have Mabel confronting the fact that she doesn't really want to engage with the world with her whole Mabel world bubble. But she does at the end accept that, time passes, summer ends, this is the world she's living in. And afterwards she still continues to be exactly as happy and chipper and optimistic as she was before. Which is great. It doesn't make her any more serious, and it doesn't stop her being serious at any time during the show. She's quite...
I think that's the thing that made that whole episode, was basically the line when Dipper's like, Mabel, you're smarter than this.
Yeah.
It's the point, like, she's idealistic, but she's not, like,
that doesn't mean she's
ignorant
stupid.
of the world.
Yeah.
And I was Susie snapped out of it. She was like, "What? Why did I tolerate all this? This is too much. This is absurd. This is too much for anyone."
I don't know. I love Mabel. She's consistently funny and fun throughout the series, and she, sometimes she seems a little. Sometimes she comes off like she's. I have absolutely lost words today. It's not quite insensitive to things Dipper wants or needs, but again, that gets confronted at one point where Mabel gives up her entire show and the guy she has a crush on for Dipper's sake without a moment's hesitation. It's like sometimes she misses problems Dipper's having, although he's not always the most communicative kid. But the second she knows what she can do to help her brother, she'll do it without reservation or hesitation.
I think the thing is that Mabel is has a lot of, self-confidence.
Yeah.
And sometimes that kind of gets in her way, but she tries not to let it too much.
And it allows her to bounce back very quickly and, keep being her.
Yeah. I always appreciate characters that can, balance self-confidence without seeming like...
Without being assholes.
Self-important, I guess.
Yeah, because there is a fine line between being self-confident and, a vain asshole.
Yeah.
And, part of it is that we do have Pacifica Northwest in there, who is easily a vain asshole. And a big part of that is that, she can't just be happy in herself, she has to trample on others to be happy. Although I do love the episode we get that explores her relationship with her parents and how fucked up that is, that explains a lot about her.
I would honestly want to see a lot more of Pacifica.
I would.
That's one of the characters I want to see the most of.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot there we didn't get to explore, and I am interested to see she goes up. I feel like after that episode we do get a bit less of her being an asshole to others, but she is still a little bit.
Okay, so after that, this will actually take some thought. Favorite episode/episodes. So I already know mine, so I have a few in mind, but I know immediately that my favorite episode is still Scarioki. Just because that's just a perfect episode. Every single part of it works exactly as it should, and does the best job it possibly could in every way.
Remind me of the synopsis of that episode?
It's the first episode of season 2.
Oh, yeah.
That episode was so good in every way. Basically every joke worked. it reintroduced, considering how it was a season opening, it reintroduced every plot point, every character, just everything perfectly in a non-intrusive way. Like, at that big party and they invited everyone.
Yeah, and that's how they get all the characters back in.
It was a perfect continuation of the first season cliffhanger. It just did so many things so well, and it had the amazing climax between Zeus as the world's greatest zombie,
Yeah.
and the amazing karaoke battle thing
I mean, every good show these days needs a zombie episode.
with karaoke.
Yes. It's the best combination.
And Gretel stands singing, "Boys are bore."
Yeah, see, I find it hard to highlight a particular favourite episode because they're all very, very good, but since you already said that one, I will say I think the one that I've thought about the most is the one with Pacifica Northwest and her parents and her family history, and just, I mean, it's more than a little, cathartic to see the absolute rip into the idea of wealth and prejudice as it's handled in that episode. But I also just, I remember it striking me really hard the fact that Pacifica's parents make her stop talking by ringing a bell at her.
That is dark.
Yeah, because it's showing that they've, they've dog trained her, basically. I think maybe that hit me so hard because I've just been reading a lot of discussions about some so-called therapists who do advocate, getting children to behave, particularly autistic children, advocating dog training techniques, and how just utterly horrific that is, treating your children like pets or animals that, you want to do specific tricks on command, and otherwise you want them to be quiet and not do much. So, and that was just, and it wasn't even a thing that was really highlighted too much in the episode, and they don't specifically go into what the bell is or what it means. But if you recognize that for what it is, you suddenly fully, completely, horrifically understand Pacifica Northwest as a character. And also the way that she and it's great to see her fighting back against her parents in order to, save everybody. Plus, all the people turning into wood was some of the most uniquely horrific visuals in the show. Up until the point where Pacifica's father got all the holes on his face shuffled, which is still the most horrific in the show for me. The people turning into wood was, oh.
That reminds me that practically the unsung voice acting hero is Preston Northwest, played by the great Nathan Fillion. Just a majestic job in this role.
He had way too much fun with that.
Like, towards the end, he's like, "I said Dina Lane!" I'll ring the bell. It's so good. It's like, we have enough food here to last us and a butler a week in here. We'll eat the butler. Every line he said in that episode was amazing.
I do love, the caliber of voice actors they've managed to get for this show, and so many of them for such minor roles.
I like how they decided to get these people for just the silliest things. Hey, we have Jon Stewart. What should we have him? He should be a giant plus cat who's also the judge and makes cat puns. Brilliant!
I feel like if you're going into Gravity Falls and you're already aware of what kind of show it is, you get your cast part and you're like, Judge Cat? Okay.
I mean, in theory, Louis C.K. as a giant head who wants people to go in his mouth should be weird, but that honestly makes complete sense to me.
I've never heard of a casting choice that made more sense, if I'm honest.
I have some other stuff here. Here's a good one. Favorite jokes. Without being here all day.
Yeah, I can't just say all of them. I'm trying to pick something in particular to do with several times, but just the fact that I have long held the belief that these nearly identical boy bands are produced in jars somewhere. I have long held the belief that they just, like, popped out of a machine somewhere, and the reason they vanish is, like, they're just stuck in a long storage until they mature into, like, 20 years later they can bring them out for a reunion tour.
Yes.
So I laughed way too hard when that turned out to be the premise of the episode, because it's like, yeah, we've all thought that. Surely we've all thought that, and you've just made it reality. Well done.
I love the joke towards the end, where where one of them is, like, eating out of Grunkle Stan's trash. He's like, hey, get out of here! Weird, beautiful men eating out of my trash can. Wait, what?
A lot of the casual things Grunkle Stan says once he's acknowledging, that Gravity Falls is weird. Yeah, just the casual weirdness that goes on. I do enjoy that shot in the last episode where it's the emo teen and his parents and his Stepford parents.
Oh, yes, that was
smiling.
great.
Be a dear and bring us the sawed-off shotgun, will you? And a zombie in his own brains. Oh, none for you. Ha 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 ha. It's just, why was that funny?
I still love the giant balloon saying, I eat kids. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's still one of my favorite lines. Mommy, is that thing gonna eat us? Yes, child, yes it is! That's amazing. And also, I still love, in the time traveler episode where they go to, like, the 1800s on the Oregon Trail, and Mabel is just so angry that Dibber suggested that she shouldn't mess up the timeline, that she intentionally brings up as many future things as possible to these people. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
Weird shoes that blink. Guess who gets a phone in the future? Ladies, up top. That's a high five. Teach it to your friends.
I adore Mabel.
I just love that she's so happy and casual about intentionally ruining the past.
Well, how does she know those things weren't invented because she went back and told people?
Mind blown.
Yep.
I just love all the weird, like, blatantly, almost self-referential meta jokes. Like when they directly point out, like the mind control thing. Wow, that's cool. And ethnically ambiguous.
Ethically ambiguous, yeah. Also the bit at the end where, Mabel's like, if I could shrink you all down with the shrink ray and take you home with me, which is impossible. Wait, is it impossible? And just the way Grunkle Ford just wiggles his tongue like, eh. And I was just expecting someone to report, I was expecting to say, which is probably impossible, and nobody's like, also ethically unsound, but who cares? Not the Pines family.
What else was there that was just great jokes? Well, obviously I loved all the anime jokes with Giffany. Or is it Giffany? I never know how to pronounce it.
Oh, the whole Giffany episode was painfully on point. But I do think that the actual relationship Seuss got during it was very sweet. And you notice in the last episode, once Seuss is running the Mystery Shack, she's the one behind the till. That's
yes, that was great. Oh, I almost forgot. The most tragic story of all time. Big Henry in the mine.
Oh, yeah.
That's still amazing.
It just comes out with a lot of good little stories like that and then moves right along.
I just love how this is a tragic story in the middle of this.
And then nobody cares, moving right along.
Like I said, if we just did all the best jokes, we'd be here all day.
Well, that would be all of the jokes, but yeah, my favorite is probably just the sheer fact that several times were in fact grown in jars.
Okay, one last thing I have on here. Where you would want the series to go if it ever continued? I think I've said my main ideas before, but the main thing I want is a Gravity Falls sequel that's a video game.
Yeah, I'd love just like some kind of open world RPG where
or something.
You can just explore Gravity Falls and, pick up little quests from the characters. Like, especially if you had a major plot line, but also you could just spend the whole time running around doing weird little quests involving the weird, the various monsters around Gravity Falls, and you've got, like, journals to fill in.
I still think it should be done by the people who did the South Park game, because they just did a fantastic job on that and making that game look exactly like South Park. So I'd want to see them try to make a game that looks exactly like Gravity Falls.
And
that would be amazing.
Like, if they did it right, that art style would look great as a game. I think for the series, I have so many, like... The thing is, because of the way the characters are split off, like, part of me wants to find out what all of them end up doing over the next year. Like, I want to see Mabel's friends starting out at high school. I want to see Wendy and her buddies fighting monsters now that Gravity Falls is apparently being quite open about all their weirdness. I'd like to see what Grunkle Stan and Grunkle Ford are getting up to, traveling the world as old men fighting monsters. But I don't think I'd want, like, a whole series of any of those things. I think I'd just want to check in on them.
Yeah, just like a weird, like, random stories of random places type of series.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to do another series, I think I would want them to, like, do, like, a world traveling one. Like, just have all the characters in, like some advanced sort of playing thing. You've ever seen, like, those, like, I guess, like, Johnny Quest sort of shows, where they just explore the world and just find weird adventures all over the place.
Well, actually, another thing I think would be really cool would just be, showing Dipper and Mabel next year at school, and it's like they're apparently living in a fairly normal part of California, but, like, they keep hearing stories about strange things, and because they miss Gravity Falls, they get really excited and go investigate the strange things, only, it's like a fucking Scooby-Doo episode, and it's just something entirely mundane and a trick or trap, and they get so disappointed every time. But then, like, at the end of the season, they finally find something legitimately weird, and everyone else is terrified, and they're just like, yes, finally!
That would be great.
Actually, best thing would be, like, a proper Scooby-Doo crossover. It's just these,
yes.
just these little tag-alongs to the Mystery Machine, getting really disappointed every time it's not actually a ghost. And they haven't explained to anybody what happened in Gravity Falls, but everyone's just like, why are you not running screaming from that walking tree? And it's just like, seen worse. It's not even a big walking tree.
That would be awesome.
Mabel still has her grappling hook.
Yes. I like to imagine that she tries to get to school using it somehow, but it just leads to pain.
Mabel trying to find everyday excuses to use her.
Just like, why did I grab onto this bus?
So, it's like she's spending the world like, oh, what was it? Was it flipping? Was it the new Just Cause game where you can basically get around the entire game world just using your grappling hook?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah, that's Mabel.
Mabel's gonna stop all the terrorists.
Yep, probably.
I would actually really like to see that, especially if it's done like that one... Have you ever seen that Johnny Bravo episode that did a Scooby-Doo crossover?
I have not, but I'm interested.
It was really, really funny. Like, they just made so many jokes about it while solving Johnny Bravo with it, and it was a great combination. My favorite joke being when, of course, Velma loses her glasses, but Johnny Bravo has his, like, cool sunglasses. Velma's like, glasses, I can't see without my glasses. And then Johnny Bravo's like, glasses, I can't be seen without my glasses.
Yep. I remember I didn't watch much Johnny Bravo as a kid, but I remember being quite fond of it because literally the whole joke is that he's an asshole and gets regularly beaten up by women for it.
Yes.
I enjoy that. I miss Scooby-Doo a lot just now, actually. I know there's a new Scooby-Doo series, but I haven't seen anything on it, so I don't know if it's good or not.
I've not heard good things.
Oh dear. Just I remember I used to watch those old Hanna-Barbera cartoons for flippin' hours. And, the kind of properly old ones where you can see, where the ghost is going to come from, because that's the only door that's actually outlined. That isn't just painted in background. But it was just fun anyway.
And thus, the Gravity Falls discussion ended on Scooby-Doo.
Yep. You can't tell me when it's got a lot. It has some spiritual similarities, I think, but you can't tell me you don't want to see the Pines twins and Waddles hanging out with the Mystery Crew.
I'm honestly surprised they never did a straight-up parody of Scooby-Doo. That seems like a thing they would do. Like, they would, they would have this, fake, 60s sounding music, while they all, run through different doors. You know, the classic gag where, they go through these different doors in, one hallway, and it's, one shot.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't actually parodied that shot, because everything else under the sun has.
Yeah.
Maybe it was too obvious.
Guess so. I don't know. Gravity Falls sometimes really likes too obvious. I mean, they did do a parody of Donkey Kong.
Yeah, and that wasn't subtle.
I'm not sure what else there is to say about this.
We've kind of gone over the way that it was wonderful in every way. I would really need to rewatch it to come up with some more detailed thoughts about the themes of the series. But as it is just now, it's heavy. It's not exactly subtle with its method about, sticking to your family and your siblings. And especially how, it isn't just you that can suffer if you and your family can't have good relationships. Although, I have to say, I am glad that it sticks very tightly to the whole siblings not betraying each other and sticking a strong relationship.
Yes.
It doesn't really argue whether or not Stanley and Stanford should have ever made up with their asshole parents. Because I know that one can be a lot of stories that go for themes of, it's you have to trust your family no matter what because they're your family. And that can be a problem for people who are in abusive families. It's no, you don't have to trust those assholes. But specifically, Stanley and Stanford did have a strong and positive and loving relationship until they started throwing each other under the bus for their own personal reasons. And that's what caused 30 years worth of problems for everything. Whereas Dipper and Mabel throughout the series have always, when they know the other's in trouble, they put the other first before them every single time, and they can trust each other, and that is, it's a good thing. It's a force for good in this world.
Yes.
That's why we love Gravity Falls.
Mystery Twins forever.
Yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
Good night. Farewell.